John Mack at Harvard. He compared it to shamanistic experiences. We might even think of something like the Stockholm Syndrome, when you begin to identify with your captors and you feel special. You're chosen. Even though this was awful, they did it for a good reason. You have a message now to give to humankind about the world's destiny. Deeply sinister, overtly demonic. In other words, the mechanism that produces this set of memories can be different. I personally have two friends who focus on abduction research. They've documented over 100 cases where they will either lead someone to Christ or train a person to make it a spiritual confrontation when whatever is happening to them happens, and they have been delivered from repeated abduction experiences. In other words, they stop. There's some inherent spiritual element to this particular thing within this big umbrella world we call UFO stuff. But since it's inherently spiritual and it's evil and it's wicked, a lot of UFO researchers are the enemies of the whole subject. They don't think it has anything to do with aliens at all. This is the content of the messaging. It's so directed, anti-Christian or subversion of Christian theology, that it's very easy for me to think of it in terms of a deception. Again, a superior intelligence, but not one that comes from another planet. A sinister intelligence from the spiritual world, the kind of unseen realm that the Bible talks about. We would use the word demons, demonic, for that sort of thing. It's actually much wider than that, and that realm is a lot bigger than just angels and demons. Talking about the messaging, it's really dark. It's no exaggeration to say that the messaging that people supposedly get from aliens is inherently anti-Christian. It really doesn't do that to other religions. Something spiritually sinister about this alien contact messaging. There were a number of scholars who decided to tackle this subject. What are the similarities between abduction narratives and satanic ritual abuse? Worship, so to speak, in a Luciferian context that involves sexual abuse and other kinds of abuse. There are touch points between what people say that happened to them in these rituals or what the goal of an abduction experience was supposedly. There are lots of parallels. And we're not talking 3 or 4. The metal tables, types of wounds that people suffer, they're probed in all sorts of awful places. Messaging about we're doing this so that you can birth a hybrid child, things you would hear in a satanic ritual abuse situation, or any sort of deliberate trauma episode that sort of linked itself to Lucifer or Satan, would be, for instance, with children, where children are being sexually abused and the perpetrator might pass themselves off, even in costume, as Jesus. The whole notion is to get the child convinced that God hates them, or that Lucifer is the real God and Jesus is their enemy. With adults, messaging that would be consistent with you're special, you're chosen. But there's sometimes this spin put on it, even though this is suffering. It's the shamanistic sort of approach that this event will help tune you in more to the realities of the spiritual world, and that will prep you to take a message that people need to hear.